Hey everyone, how's it going? Well, at long last, I come to you with a video that is not a tag or Friday Reads, and today I want to get around to finally answering the questions that you all left me on my Q&A announcement that I posted at the very beginning of the month. I decided to do a Q&A in honor of the fact that I have now posted 500 videos, which I saw as quite an accomplishment. So I decided I would commemorate it by just indulging my narcissistic personality. And a lot of you left some really great and some kind of substantial questions, so I will jump right into them. So the first question is from Wordsworths Everywhere. Thank you for leaving a question. And what he asks is, if you could master a language that you don't know, not for practicality, but primarily for the purpose of reading or engaging with the literature, what would it be? And that's pretty easy for me. I would want to learn Czech. I have said several times in the past, but I'll say it again for those who don't know, that my dad is Czech and obviously grew up speaking the language, but I have never learned Czech. And because I don't know the language and can't read it, a lot of Czech literature is kind of closed to me because a lot of great classics of Czech literature haven't been translated. And even though that have been translated, when I've read them, I've got the sense that they haven't been necessarily translated all that well. I have a feeling that Czech is one of those languages where it just doesn't always translate that well into English. But it's also just a language where there are few enough translations or little enough translation activity on classics of Czech literature that the translations that do get done aren't always of the highest quality. So I would definitely want to be able to learn Czech just to engage a little bit more with, one half of my heritage. Next question is from Gina Stainer Books, who asks, do you plan your videos, post on a schedule, or have goals for your channel? Or is it more loosey-goosey? Also, how did you meet Kelly and Jason, if you could share? And I'll answer the second question because it's a bit of a quicker answer. I met Jason and Kelly, which refers to Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse and Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading, over BookTube, basically. I started watching both of their channels a few years ago, and I really liked them, and I started commenting, and then we connected on Voxer, and we continued to talk on Voxer, and then eventually I asked if I could visit because I live in Iowa, so I'm not so far away that it's a prohibitively long drive. So I drove over to meet them, and it's just gone from there. And now Jason and I also have a film club that we host every Wednesday virtually, and so it just sort of took off from there. But basically, in short, we met through BookTube. And then to answer the first question, do you plan your videos or post on a schedule or have goals for your channel, or is it more loosey-goosey? It's very, very loosey-goosey. In fact, I think something I've realized this year is that I'm just never going to be a booktuber who's very systematic about what he posts. I really admire booktubers who post a Friday Reads every week, who post wrap-ups at the end of every month, or a wrap-up for the first half of a month and a wrap-up for the second half of a month, or do a tag every Tuesday, or always put out a book review, once every 2 weeks or every week or something. I have great admiration for people who can make their channel into a kind of regularly scheduled programming, almost. But I'm just never going to be like that because I am always having different ideas for videos. I'm always sort of wanting to tweak my channel a little bit. I think of my channel as sort of always being a work in progress. And so I'm always changing things a little bit. I'm always feeling different kinds of videos. I know there's going to be a question that comes up later in this Q&A where someone asked, what's my favorite kind of video to do? But my favorite kind of video to do kind of changes from month to month. So it's very loosey-goosey. There's no real regular schedule. Sometimes I do Friday Reads, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I post review videos, sometimes I don't. Every now and then I do a tag. Every now and then I do discussion videos. And it just depends on what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. Next question is from the Rambling Raconteur from Jack. And Jack asks, I know you've visited several national parks. Are there any that would qualify as your favorite? And my favorite national park would definitely be Grand Teton National Park. And I actually posted 3 different videos of my visit to Grand Teton National Park a few years ago. And there's one particularly cool video in which I got on camera an encounter with not 1, not 2, but 3 moose which I was terrified while it was happening, but I was kind of glad that I managed to capture it on camera, which was not really intentional. But Grand Teton National Park is kind of the underlooked younger brother of Yellowstone National Park, and I haven't been to Yellowstone National Park, so I can't speak to it, and I'm sure if I went there I would love it, but I just love huge mountains, basically, and I also love mountain lakes, and there's a lot of mountains in Grand Teton National Park, and there are a lot of great mountain lakes that I really enjoyed swimming in. So definitely Grand Teton National Park stands out. I also really love Canyonlands National Park in Utah, which is kind of, again, the neglected younger brother of the Grand Canyon. And again, if I ever visit the Grand Canyon, which I hope I will, I'm certain I will think it is absolutely stupendous. But again, I think Canyonlands is wonderful in its own ways. So I do also love Canyonlands. I think Canyonlands is great to go if you just want quiet and tranquility, especially if you're willing to do a little bit of hiking there. So yeah, those would probably be my two favorites. Next question is from Joe Smith, who says, I've seen you do several road trips on your channel. If you could choose anywhere in the US to visit or move to, where would it be? Beyond the US, which countries have you visited or would you like to visit someday, and why? So in terms of where I really would like to move at this point in my life, I actually would really love to just move back to the Northeast, back to nearer where I grew up. Just at this point in my life, that's what I feel the most inclined to do. That's what I hope I get to end up doing. Because it's just home, it's just what feels safe to me and comfortable. Now, I think the question is asking, like, about dream places to live. And again, if I were to spend my life somewhere, I think I would have to pick the northwest of the United States. I think I would really love to live in Wyoming or Montana, someplace like that, if I could find a place that wasn't totally inhospitable. I also think I would really like to live in Seattle. I just get the sense that that's a city I would really like. So yeah, basically the Northwest US would be my second place after just moving back to the Northeast. The next question was, beyond the US, which countries have you visited or would you like to visit? So I've been to Canada. I have some family in Canada. When my dad immigrated to the United States from Czechoslovakia, as it was at the time, his mom went to Canada and he stayed in the United States. So my dad's mother, my grandmother, went to Canada, got remarried to a second husband, and had another son there, so my uncle, who's much younger than my father. And now my uncle is married and has 2 kids, so it's sort of a branch of my family who's in Canada. So I've visited there quite a bit. And then beyond that, I've been to the Czech Republic, and that's basically it. There are some countries in Europe where I've sort of briefly done excursions to. I once had a layover in Paris, but didn't really get to see Paris. And I know I visited some family in Switzerland once when I was very, very young, but I don't really remember it. And again, I didn't get to, like, see parts of Switzerland very much, so I wouldn't call it a proper visit. So really just Canada and the Czech Republic. And in terms of places I would like to visit, there are a lot. I would like to visit Chile in South America, because I think it just looks like a beautiful country, and I'm really intrigued by just how many writers are from that country. South America in general I could probably just give as an answer, because I think it's just a fascinating and beautiful continent. The only part of it that I really don't want to visit is the Amazon rainforest, which sounds like a horrific place to live. I don't know why anyone goes there. But basically everywhere else in South America I think is fascinating, especially that sort of southern tip of it, that Argentina, Chile, Patagonia area, I think would be really cool. And then another place I really want to visit is Taiwan. I recently got very interested in the city of Taipei. It just looks like a really cool city, so I would really like to visit there. And then beyond that, I really want to go to Russia, especially like St. Petersburg and Moscow, the big metropolitan centers. I really would love to go see some ballet in Russia, or some opera in Russia, or just some classical music in general. I would also love to see the taiga in Siberia, you know, the boondocks of Siberia. I would like to see that part of Russia as well. So those are some places I would like to visit. I imagine there are a lot of other places that I would get interested in visiting if I heard about them, but those are the places at this point in my life that I'm really eager to see. The next question is from Vonterstellar, who writes, my question is all about your cat. How did you meet? What's her personality like? So my cat's named Bessie. She has black fur. I met her in a very underfunded shelter in a town in rural Illinois. I in 2017, around the summer of 2017, I decided that I wanted to adopt a cat. just because I thought it would be cool. It'd be a cool change. It felt like the first thing I was really just doing independently. That was actually the first time in my life where I was living away from my parents, because I lived with my parents for all of college. So it felt like kind of an independent adult thing to do. So I went to adopt a cat at this shelter, and she just stood out. It was, again, like I said, not a very well-funded shelter, so the conditions were kind of sad, and it was one of those shelters where you really wish you could do something for all of the cats there, because they were just stuffed in cages, very small cages with a litter box and food and water, and not given much attention, and Bessie was clearly very starved for attention, but her personality just stuck out. She was very energetic and very eager to interact, and she also drooled on my shoulder when I first picked her up, which I thought was kind of funny, and a lot of people think I'm weird for, like, finding that cute, but it was. And what's interesting is she's never drooled since. It was just that first time where she was, for some reason, drooling on my shoulder. But she just had a really energetic personality, and she was really outgoing, and she was just very cute. And so that's where I met her. I, met a lot of other cats that day, obviously, but she was the one I ended up picking out. And she is an interesting cat. She is quite anxious, I have to say. I think the time at the shelter maybe had some effect on her psychology. She just is very edgy sometimes. She can get a little bit feisty in a bad way, and she can sometimes sort of flip out on me, and that's never fun. She actually does take gabapentin, which is an anti-anxiety medication, and I think that has helped some. But other than that, she is a really nice cat. She's very friendly. She likes meeting new people. And she's just a sweetheart. She's a ham, kind of, I like to say. She likes showing off to people, I think. She likes showing off her cuteness, I think. So, I don't know. That's the best personality portrait I can give of her in one go like this. The next question is from David Wiley, who asks, what is the best book you've read this year and your favorite? And then same questions for your lifetime, best and favorite books you've ever read. So in terms of this year's best books, I'm going to post a video about my favorite fiction and nonfiction books that I read this year. So it might seem like kind of a cop-out, but just stay tuned for those videos. And in terms of all time, my favorite, I don't know about best versus favorite, but my favorite nonfiction book that I've ever read is The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I just think it has so much great wisdom in it. And then my favorite fiction book that I've ever read is Moby Dick by Herman Melville, which is a new development, actually. You'll be happy to hear, well, maybe you'll be sad to hear, David Wiley, that my favorite fiction book used to be The Silmarillion. And I still love The Silmarillion. I think it would be a solid second place now. But I reread Moby Dick this year, and it just blew me away so much on a second read that I think it has to be number one now. So, favorite fiction, Moby Dick. Favorite nonfiction, The Meditations. The next question is from Brandon's Bookshelf, and he asks, I'd be really curious which kinds of videos, after doing so many, you enjoy making the most and why. Actually, what I've realized in the past year or so is that the videos that I really love doing are discussion videos, general discussion videos. I like doing them more than I like doing reviews, more than I like doing Friday Reads or tags. And I just love thought dumping about a subject that I have thoughts on, basically. I love just throwing my thoughts out there and getting other people's thoughts. What's great about those videos is that I feel like I'm pretty good at them, for one thing, but another thing is that they're very fulfilling because they generate so much great discussion in the comments. And occasionally they have generated response videos from other people, and that's just as great. And so I think those are the videos that I find the most fulfilling and that I'm the best at and that I enjoy making the most. I enjoy kind of crafting my articulation of my views on something. Now, the frustrating thing about the fact that those are my favorite kinds of videos is that they're not that easy to do very often, because I can't force those kinds of videos. I need to have an issue or a subject that I'm particularly interested in, or feel like I have something to say about, or that's stuck in my craw or something for some time in order for me to make one of those videos. I can't just pull ideas out of somewhere, because then it's going to be forced, and the videos are going to be kind of probably pretty dumb, and it just wouldn't be that good if I tried to force myself to do those on a regular basis. But when I do have an idea for one, they are so great to do, and great to get responses from people. So those are definitely my favorite. Next question is from Lori Emerson, who says, I have a number of Iowan relatives and associates, I have a number of Iowan relatives and associate Iowans with bashful hands in their pockets farmers. What have you observed about Iowans, and have you picked up any colloquialisms? And in another vein, will you be co-hosting Shake-Tember again in 2022? I hope so. Yes, I will be co-hosting Shake-Tember again in 2022. Don't worry, I will be there. In terms of Iowa, so the thing is I haven't explored Iowa that thoroughly. I've been so wrapped up in my studies and in graduate school that a lot of the people I meet aren't necessarily from Iowa. But in terms of what limited experience I have had with actual Iowans at stores or other places, is that they're really, like, polite. They're, like, way more polite than people from New York. I, like, go to have work done on my car, and I feel so validated by the people who work at the garage, you know? I once went to the DMV, which is not usually the place you go to feel good about yourself, and I felt better coming out of the DMV than I did going into the DMV, which is not most people's experience being at the DMV. And it's just because the people were really nice. They were just really polite and nice to talk to. And so that's largely been my experience with Iowans, with individual people in Iowa. I haven't picked up any colloquialisms, so I don't have much to say there, unfortunately. But my experience with Iowans is that they're very nice. Next question is from Isaiah Armstrong, who asks, how is your degree coming along? Has your particular field of study given you new insights into what you read for fun? My degree is coming along very well. I'm in my 4th year. I have 1 more year, and then I'll be out in the world and hopefully have some sort of a job. I hope to go into academia. For those of you who might not know, I am working on a PhD in social psychology, and I hope to go into academia as a professor who focuses both on teaching and on research. And so I'm in my 4th year. I'm probably behind where I'd like to be in terms of my dissertation, although I'm not behind where a lot of other people are, so I don't think I'm not really in trouble, but I do need to kind of kick things into high gear and get writing done on my dissertation next semester. But my degree is coming along very well. I'm done with coursework, which is a great feeling. I'm still going to take some classes, because there are some things I want to learn about, and there's a certificate that I want to get for statistics that the program offers, so I'll be taking classes for that. But other than that, I'm pretty much done with classes, which is really cool. Like, when you've been in school for as long as I have, to finally be done with required classes is, like, so validating. But my research is going very well. I have 2 articles in press, meaning that I submitted them to journals and they're under review. I have a few articles that have been published, so that's great, because that's something that helps get you a job in academia. I have now taught 1 class twice, and I'm going to be teaching another class this upcoming summer. So that's great. Again, teaching experience for academia. So on the whole, I think things are going quite well for that. And then the second question, has your particular field of study given you new insights into what you read for fun? I think my studying of psychology affects everything I read. I think my studying of psychology just generally makes me a very empathetic person. And so I'm able to empathize with characters very well, and I think that's very useful for reading fiction. But I also tend to look at a lot of the nonfiction I read in light of the psychology I study, if it's relevant at all. Sometimes I do study a lot of the psychology of political ideology, and so sometimes when I read about politics in my nonfiction reading, that can sort of shed light on some of the issues I study in my own research. And so, yeah, I guess that's the best answer I could give to that. Next question is from Too Tight Lautrec, who asks, I'm curious to hear about how you like living in Iowa. I spent 2 years in Iowa City, and as Dickens said about a very different city, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So, like I probably suggested before, I do like living in Iowa. I actually have 2 friends who live in Iowa City, and they love it there. And I've been to visit them and been around Iowa City, and it seems great. but I obviously haven't lived there, so I don't know. But I've liked living in Iowa. I like the landscape around here. I know it has a reputation for being really boring and repetitive, but it's actually, I think, quite soothing to drive through. I rather like cornfields. And like I said, the people here are nice. So I actually rather like living in Iowa. The only thing that I think is a major downside is the politics of the place. It is much more of a conservative state than it used to be. It used to be a bit more on the moderate side. Now it's definitely more conservative. It did go for Donald Trump twice. And the governor of the state is insane. But anyway, if you can get past that, I think it's a nice place to live, personally. But I certainly wouldn't want to invalidate your experience living here too tight, so I don't know. Next question is from Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, who asks, if looking back on your booktube journey, is there anything you wish you had done differently? Anything you would change? I think I would have gotten editing software earlier. For the first period in my booktube time, I was not editing videos because I didn't know about any editing software, so I would just try my best to get videos out in one go, and that was just really tough and caused a lot of extra stress, and I think led to some videos that could have been done better. So that's the major thing that I would change. But other than that, the only other thing that comes to mind is the name of my channel. The first name of my channel was Lukashist Books, spelled Luukashist spacebar books. And that's just such a weird name for a channel. And I knew it when I started it, and I just said, I don't really care. It's a channel name that's kind of personal to me. Maybe someday I'll go into what it's about, but it's just a weird name for a channel, right? And so I wish I had come up with a better channel name than that. And eventually I did. I think Totally Pretentious was a good channel name, but I think A Cruel Reader's Thesis is an even better name. So there you have it. Next question, or questions, are from Amanda Morton, who asks, what is your favorite season and why? It's winter. I like the cold. I like snow. I like staying inside and reading in the warmth. And so that's why. And I was born in February, so I think I'm biased in favor of winter. Her next question is, does the season influence what books you want to read? Not really. I've never been much of a seasonal reader. The closest I get to seasonal reading is that around the holiday season, right now, I like to read a big chunkster of a classic, and right now I am reading the Earthsea books by Ursula K. Le Guin as my chunkster classic, even though it's technically a series. I have a bind-up of all of them together, so it feels like one book. So that's my one kind of way to do seasonal reading, but other than that, not really. Her next question is, how do you choose your next book to read? Well, these days, a lot of the time that's done through buddy reads, but if I don't have buddy reads going on, then there's no real system. I just pick what I'm in the mood for. I'm very much a mood reader, so whatever happens to strike my fancy is what I pick. And then another question, how long have you had Bessie? I have now had her for 4 years. Yeah, and she's 4 years old now. Or no, she'll be 5 years old, actually, soon. So, yeah, she's getting into cat middle age, I guess. And then last question is, does where you live in Iowa have all 4 seasons? Well, some people would argue no, but technically yes. We tend to go from summer, and then we have an extended summer, and then suddenly it's winter, and then we just have a very long winter, and then suddenly it's summer. But ostensibly we do have a fall and a spring. So technically yes, but sort of also no. So there you go. Next question is from someone whose name I'm going to probably butcher pronunciation of, so I do apologize. But I'm going to say Shagun Maheshwari. And their question is, do you have a favorite word, quote, both, and what is it? At the moment, my favorite word, I think, is aromatics. It's just kind of a nice sounding word, isn't it? And my favorite quote has been for a long time and still is, men exist for the sake of one another, teach them then, or bear with them. And that is from the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Next question is from Joel Swagman. I may have also butchered that pronunciation, so I apologize. But the question is, what are your goals for the future of this channel? So one goal that I have wanted to achieve at some point is to do a proper read-along on my channel. I've never just hosted all by myself a read-along of a big book, and I would love to do that. I would love to just do a read-along, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, where I make 4 separate videos on one book that other people are reading with me and do a deep dive into that book. I know I can't do that all the time because it would just be too much, but I want to do it at least once at some point on this channel. So that's a big goal for me. But other than that, I wouldn't say I have any specific goals other than to continue to do what I do and hope that it stays engaging. Next question is from Eladek, and that's another username I might be mispronouncing, but their question is there a book you wish you'd never read? No, I don't think so. Even bad books or books that really rubbed me the wrong way, I generally feel like I got something out of and feel like I grew somehow as a reader from them. So I wouldn't say that there was ever a book that I wish I'd never read. In fact, I think sometimes you learn more from the bad books than from the good books, because they kind of teach you. I think when you come across a really bad book, it lays very bare what makes the good books good, and so it can kind of teach you how to read better sometimes than reading great books even. So there's that. And then, last of all, I have a question from Rainbow Sky Gay and Proud, who asks, who are your favorite gay writers? And I haven't read that many gay writers, but one that comes to mind as a major favorite of mine is James Merrill, the American poet. I just adore his poetry. I also read a biography of him, and he was just a fascinating person as well. So he would probably be my favorite that I've read. But other than that, there aren't really enough gay writers who I've explored in enough depth to really call them favorite writers, even though I have read books by gay authors. So, sorry, that's probably a disappointing answer, but there you have it. And then the second question is how did your novel writing go? Because I know you had an idea for a novel. Yeah, I was hoping to participate in NaNoWriMo back in November. And I had an idea that I was really excited about, and I felt more motivated to do NaNoWriMo than I ever had before, so I was feeling really confident that I would finally get to it. But then November came around, and my mental health was just in the dumpster at that point in my life, and I just knew that adding the stress of writing a novel in a month would be too much for me, and so I just let it go. It's unfortunate, but I knew it was the right thing. Maybe next year. I have been telling myself that Shakespeare wrote his first play when he was 28, and I will be 28 years old next year, so maybe that will be motivation, but we will see. We will see. My writing of my first novel might have to wait until after I am done with school and have like a regular job, so it didn't really go at all. I'm sorry. And then third question is, what genres do you write? Every single story idea that I've ever had, whether it's a novel, whether it's a short story, whether I came up with it in college or this last year or when I was back in high school, has always been either science fiction or fantasy. And it's funny because I don't really read all that much science fiction or fantasy, but it seems like all of the ideas that I have to write about are science fiction and fantasy. So that's just more of a reason why I should get more into those genres, because if I'm going to write them at some point, maybe, then I need to read them a little bit. So those are the genres that I like writing. And those are all of the questions. I want to thank you all at the end for leaving questions, and thank you all for watching my channel just in general, but also thank you for watching this video. And I will leave it at that. This is probably a long video at this point. So thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.